Hi and welcome to History Legends. In this video we'll do a step-by-step historical breakdown of a Danish World War II movie called April 9th, which covers the 1940 German invasion of Denmark. Are you ready? It's truly a masterpiece. Let's go. Basically now what's going on is that all the Danish troops from the border area are retreating to this town called Haderslev in an attempt to stop the Germans. They don't have many men, about 400 against entire panzer columns. And they attempted to block the roads with anti-tank weapons, but they don't have many. Yes, check this out. This is exactly why I love this movie. You know how I often complain how movies make shit up. This is not the case here. This shot is an inspiration from an actual picture taken minutes before the battle. I've never seen a movie that takes realism, historical realism, so seriously. As you can see, there's the same amount of people in the shot as in the actual picture. They're positioned the same way they were that day. I get excited. I'm just happy that finally a movie takes this seriously. So before we continue, it's important to note that this is a 37mm anti-tank cannon. During this battle, Danish troops had 4 of them to defend the town. And as you can imagine, all of them were positioned at the most strategic entrances to get into the town. This picture is actually pretty tragic because a few minutes later they actually got engaged by panzers. These inexperienced Danish crews managed to destroy 2 tanks and damage another. Out of 3 hits, all of them were scored. But eventually this anti-tank cannon would be destroyed, 2 killed and 3 wounded. Oh my god, I just love this movie. I hope I'm not gonna stop every second. Okay, do you see this shot? Again, they took actual pictures and recreated them in the movie. And again, compare this shot to an actual painting of the battle. You can compare it and it's actually the same thing and it makes me super happy. Basically what we see here is a Danish roadblock made of dumping wagons, and at the lower left you can see a Masson 20mm autocannon. 2 of them were defending this particular roadblock. And although it's not your typical anti-tank cannon, they performed relatively well against German armored vehicles. On their own, at that same spot, they managed to destroy 1 Panzer I. So the guy didn't want to let them in, but eventually he agreed. You can notice the M23 Danish helmet, a very specific model. Okay, you can see the Masson 20mm cannon, autocannon here. And they're very smart in this shot. There should be another one on the other side. But since they probably didn't have the budget, it's kind of hidden and you kind of have to assume that it's there. Poor guys, they barely have any weapons to defend this place, barely any ammo. But they have to do the best with what they have. I like it. Mentions ammo. Look at that. For once they care about ammo. Distribute it evenly. Makes sense. This is actually what a commander, a squad leader, a platoon leader would tell his men. In a perfect world, of course, because I imagine you would want the best shooters to have the most ammo. But listen to that, the sound, it's individual rounds, it's not even clips, and they have to put them in a little pouch, individual rounds. Imagine having to reload loose rounds in the middle of a battle under stress and everything. I can't imagine, it must be really hard. They're using a bolt action rifle called the Krag Jorgensen model 1889, a pretty old weapon. There are 5 individual rounds in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber. Caliber 5x58, which is much smaller than for the German Mauser Kar 98. But imagine having to reload this in battle compared to the Germans, which have at least stripper clips. You see their helmet, their uniform, it's all legit. This movie paid great attention to uniforms. What I like is that they're giving them orders. You see, there's this hierarchy. At the beginning, we saw this colonel. Now we see this guy. Now the main character, which is a second lieutenant, has to defend some remote place in the town. And this is what I like about this realism in this movie, is that he doesn't even know the area. He's just told, you have to defend these 2 roads, end of story. And this guy doesn't even have time to think. He brings the handful of men he has, positions them. Weg? And it sounds like German. Okay, check this out. This is a Masson machine gun, and as you probably noticed, it looks a lot like the design for the Bren LMG. The crazy thing is that the Masson is actually 30 years older than the British Bren, so that kind of explains why the design looks similar, especially with the top-mounted magazine. But in terms of functioning, the Bren inspired itself from the Czechoslovak ZB-26. But for a weapon designed in 1902, pretty solid. Right, the second lieutenant, he has new guys under his command. He has a squad to defend 2 streets. But what I like is that he's thinking of a strategy to defend the place. There's tactics involved. They're taking cover, they're preparing for the battle. Imagine, you wake up in the morning and you know the enemies are attacking all of a sudden. Now, the only thing I'm wondering is, why can't they enter the houses? Maybe they're too polite, or maybe doors are locked. I don't know. Yes. So you see, there's an advantage in staying in the street. You can pull back easy. If you're stuck in the house, it's more complicated. You see, he distributes his men. There's some hierarchy, there's some strategy involved. I like it. And now it's the moment they wait for the enemy. Look at that. Look at that point of view. Imagine being there for hours waiting for soldiers to come. You know, in the first minutes, you have the anxiety, you have the adrenaline, but eventually it fades away and you're wondering, where are they? When are they coming? And what's tragic here is that all these men, they woke up as inexperienced soldiers with barely any training. And by that time, it's already their second time preparing for a battle. And thing is, he doesn't even have enough men to send scouts forward. So, they're waiting for the enemy. Oh, here's one, the German. Okay, second one. Yes, this is exactly what I like to see. It's realistic, underwhelmingly realistic. Instead of it being like in Call of Duty, where they just chat, laugh, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion. Here it's just a couple Germans silently crossing the streets, unaware that their Danes are there. Well done, I'm happy of all this effort and how they want to stick to historical realism as close as possible. Very interesting. Okay, the Germans are firing back. The guy's probably wounded. You see, they pulled him to the side. Very good. So, did you see what's happening? The second lieutenant has his men positioned on 2 roads, and one of the roads engaged the enemy. So the other guys, their tension is rising because they know the battle has started. It's like if you're in a roller coaster and you know that if in a couple seconds it's gonna go down. And poor guy, he doesn't have any radios, no telephones. He literally has to run around, give orders. He has visual control, has to literally talk to his soldiers running around. Oh my god, Panzer. Okay, no, not a Panzer, armored vehicle. So this is a Sonderkraftfahrzeug SD-Kfz 222. And the 222 model, you can easily recognize it with its 20mm auto cannon. And it's also equipped as a side weapon with an MG34. But you see the Danes here, the ammo won't do anything against the vehicle. So all they can do is pull back, and now it's a matter of time. I'm still wondering, why don't they have guys in houses? They need guys on the rooftops to fire at the commander. That's the only way they can kind of hinder the vehicle. Because like that. Oh yeah, I like that they move from one hiding spot to another. You see, they cross the street from one point to another. This is exactly what soldiers would do. But again, he has to literally give micromanagement orders to his men. Insane. Okay, the Germans are closing in. Oh. Okay, he's not dead. He's wounded again. Very realistic. You see, one complaint I have about most movies is that the moment someone is shot, he dies. End of story. But that's not how things go. I think it's also important to note that the Germans that attacked the city of Haderslev were also newbies. It was a second-tier infantry division that also only had 3-4 months of training. And I think it's important to note that the Battle of Haderslev overall was one of the bloodiest engagements of the invasion of Denmark. But the casualties were not really high. The Danish army lost 4 killed and 5 wounded, and the Germans about the same thing. So already in this scene, it's a hyped up version of the battle, because remember, they're fighting at the outskirts. Meanwhile, there was an actual battle taking place on the main roads leading up to downtown. Oh, the ammo. See, they only have a few rounds. It's insane. Can you imagine going to battle with literally 5 rounds? They fire all their rounds. They literally have enough ammo for a couple minutes of combat. And what happens once they're out of ammo? I found this part interesting because you can have a closer look at the bolt action rifle Danish troops would use, the Krag Jorgensen model 1889. But this particular one, I'm not a gun expert, but it's the artillery version. And you can recognize it because the bolt handle, I think that's how you call it, is curved. Whereas the infantry version, the bolt handle is straight. So some of the soldiers you'll see in this battle have a curved one, some it's straight. No pun intended. Okay, let's go. And I like the fact that they always have a huge emphasis on covering fire. Oh, first casualty. It's kind of a normal ratio. 3 German casualties for 1 Danish. The Danes are defending. But insane. This is it. And what I like is that the guy, again, is wounded. And having one of your men wounded, especially with inexperienced troops, this can be a game changer. In a bad way. It can literally pin down, petrify all the men in the squad because it's not as if the guy's dead. They can't just leave him there. They can't just pull back and leave their friend. So they're going to try to help him, which might cause more casualties, and the entire dynamic of the battle has shifted. Now the problem here is that they're stuck. You see, they had to protect 2 streets. Oh, you see, they have to pull him back. But now the Germans are closing in. And if they don't pull back soon, they're cooked. Because the Germans are going to flank them and surround them. So you see, it's a tragic situation now. They barely have ammo left. They have 1 wounded guy and they're about to get encircled. Let's have another look. You see the Germans in the back are barely firing. The Germans here have the firepower. They should be firing everything they have and pin down the Danes. Ideally, they would also have an MG34. Maybe that's the thing here at the bottom, but I'm not sure. But the Germans have more firepower. They have to fire, fire, and fire. So yeah, the German response is a bit weak in this battle scene. But you see how tragic it is. They're best friends. These guys are all friends. And you see? And the problem here is that their leader is stressed. He knows that the decision he will take next will have a huge impact on the lives of his men. He could do a last stand where they stay and fight, but they might all die. They can do a charge, might also all die. They can pull back, but since they're kind of stuck, it might also result in a lot of casualties. So what a horrible situation to be. Oh, you see, orders. This is it. Soldiers without commanding officers are prone to inaction. Oh. This, again, is very realistic in the way that imagine this unit without any commander. They would just be sitting ducks. This is why you need NCOs, you need officers to lead the troops. It's a very tricky situation. Look, he has his gun. He's ready for an attack, for a battle. And his squad is split up in 2 groups. It's very bad. Very bad tactical situation. They're shocked. He wants to save the life of his men. He's more aggressive in ordering his men to surrender than ordering them to defend the place. I thought that was funny. But at the same time, it's exhaustion. Oh my god, okay, I understand. They're actually surrounded. They were cooked. Yeah, it was a matter of time. Okay, you see how many Germans there were? We clearly didn't see it in the battle. You can see an MG34 here. You can see 5 guys, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's an entire squad just on this side. Probably the same amount on the other with the armored vehicle. So exactly like we said before, the German firepower was really much lower than what it could have been in reality. Now, one explanation, oh, by the way, I think this is another MG34 here. So with 2 machine guns, they could have literally obliterated the Danish troops. Like, you just position them and there is no way for them to retreat. Now, the one thing that explains perhaps this entire battle is that the Germans were also not willing to kill that many Danes. Perhaps they just expected them to surrender, fire a few shots, avoid casualties, and end of battle. So that might explain it. Like, if any one of these guys takes a weapon, they're all dead. They're all gonna be drilled. See, even in defeat, keeps control of his men. There's pride. He's a strong character. So they're marching them to downtown Haderslev with the rest of the prisoners, I imagine. Lieutenant, does any one of you speak German? I speak German. It's not necessary. Okay.
Ich bin Oberleutnant Becker von der 170. Infanteriedivision.
Ja, Oberleutnant Becker von 140. Infanteriedivision.
Yeah, this division, like we said, was a second-tier division with very young personnel or older one. Now, as you know, I always tell you I'm not the greatest gun guy, but let me know in the comment section if these weapons are actual weapons or it's like a plastic remake of actual weapons.
Sie und Ihre Männer unterstehen ab sofort meiner Obhut und werden zurück in die Kaserne gebracht.
De og deres mænd er nu i min varetægt, og I vil blive sendt tilbage til jeres kaserne.
All of them were sent to their barracks, not to any prison camps. And from their barracks, most of them again were just sent home the same day.
Warum um alles haben Sie so lange gekämpft?
Jeg vil gerne vide, hvorfor vi er blevet ved med at kæmpe så længe.
Jeg forstår ikke, hvad mener de? Es war nicht notwendig, dass so viele Mann ihr Leben lassen mussten. Ihre Regierung hat bereits kapituliert.
Oh! We were right.
Der er unødvendigt spild af liv, da vores regering længe har afgivet sig.
Okay, so this explains why the Germans, when they attacked Second Lieutenant Sand's position, it was a very weak attack because Danish troops had already surrendered. They expected them to surrender as well. So you see, okay, that explains this entire battle scene. Very realistic. Once again, it's a logical thing. I think we'll stop here, but as you can see, I barely had any negative criticism for this movie. And I find it amazing how, despite some restricted budget, they managed to make something good. The equipment is right. They managed to find German armored vehicles, anti-tank cannons. The tactics used by both sides make sense. And above all, they try to keep this historical realism at all times. And what I like is that it's some sort of historical fiction, and it depicts what this bicycle platoon could have actually gone through. And it's not a coincidence that this movie is so good, because at the end you see all the veterans, all the eyewitnesses that saw these events, that lived them, and I'm sure they had a great role in directing this movie. And I can say with confidence that April 9th is one of my favorite war movies. So let me know in the comment section what you thought of my analysis. If you enjoyed this video, if you're new to this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, if you want to discover more war movies, if you want to see more of my reaction videos, make sure to support me on Patreon.